Thank you for spending another midweek moment with the Wisconsin property taxpayers. I'm Paul Rozeski. Today is Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 2024. Welcome to the fourth quarter of the year. Welcome to Fat Bear Week. Starting today, the 2nd, and each day you can vote for your favorite before and after photo of bears fattening up for the winter. Today is also National Name Your Car Week, so put your thinking hats on, and as always, celebrate responsibly. Speaking of thinking caps, it's a good transition into some education topics. So, let's jump into some news together. Let's start off with a brief recap, because when the Taxpayer Association looks at education, the theme I hear about again and again from our members or other folks that I talk to, it's the frustration with referendum after referendum about school funding, which is a minefield of frustration for people, and I can't touch all the things that are broken with the system. Enrollments are declining, reading scores are down, the levy limits haven't increased with the rate of inflation, which is why the state has increased its funding by billions of dollars to the schools, plus COVID dollars from the federal government. And some districts are closing and consolidating schools, and there's still more demand for more money than ever. Funny how most people would be glad to see teachers get paid more, and they have, but that is never the reason for the referenda that are proposed. Well, instead of going back and forth with the bickering and the nuances, let's just focus on some of the numbers of referenda. Voters approved 62 out of 103 school referendums on the primary and general election ballots this spring. 62%, a record low number since the turn of the century. In November, there will be another 137 referendum questions on the ballot, which brings me to another number, and it's from the Marquette Law School poll, which was released today, and which I tend to mention whenever they come out. Things look similar on the presidential side, and in the state Senate race, every single candidate has a negative favorability rating, which has been an ongoing trend. The only person that eked out a favorable rating was Tim Walz. But seriously, I'm sure it's just a matter of time before that slips away too. What did catch my eye, and thanks to friend of the podcast, John Jacobson, for beating me to the punch and seeing this question that they asked in their survey. Which is more important to you? Reduce property taxes or increase spending on public schools? 56% said reduce property taxes and 44% said increase spending on public schools. It confirms the trend and makes me wonder if the number of approved referenda will go down drastically or stay on this gradual pace. Either way, there's just referendum fatigue. They also pointed out back in October of 2018, to prove that point, the numbers were flipped. 57% said school spending was more important. 37% said reducing property taxes was more important. Either way, people have given their opinion, and we will see how people vote with their feet in November. Please vote, and please be educated on the questions on your ballot. In other news, there was another question that received the same percentages as the taxes versus schools question, and it was whether things in Wisconsin are generally headed in the right direction. 56% said things have gotten off on the wrong track, and 44% things were headed in the right direction in Wisconsin. What I wonder, would those numbers have been even worse after this week, after the Packers' complete meltdown against the Vikings in the first half, the Badgers' meltdown against USC, and the Brewers nearly going full meltdown and almost getting swept in the playoffs again? But I digress. And finally, from the You Can't Make This Stuff Up file, we take a road trip to New York City, where I can give you two stories of unbelievable stupidity for the price of one. So, like any well-meaning government, the city of New York conducted a study to help come up with ways to solve their rat problem. 2022 saw twice as much rodent activity as 2021, so none other than Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, declared war on rats. Yes, the same mayor that has been indicted on federal charges of fraud and bribery. What irony. That dirty rat declared war on those dirty rats. Yes, that's the first one. And yes, it gets better. To help come up with a solution, the city paid consulting firm McKinsey & Company $4 million to study garbage cans because in 2022, in modern society, New York was still having people throw their garbage bags to the curb, and shocker, rats could simply tear into them and have a feast. How about this? This is from the official sanitation website of New York, explaining their plan, explaining how smart they are. Last August, so August of 2023, containerization, big word, requirements went into effect for all food-related businesses in New York City. These businesses, restaurants, delis, bodegas, bars, grocery stores, caterers, etc., produce an outsized amount of the type of trash that attracts rats. $4 million because they needed help figuring out that rats like food and that throwing hefty bags of food onto the sidewalk may be drastically adding to the problem. They could have gone to any supper club or bingo hall in most of Wisconsin and got that sage advice for at least $1 million less. Great advice. Put your garbage in cans and wheel them to the curb. Wisconsin could have helped you with that, New York. Another example of tax dollars hard at work. And in closing, I will leave you with a quote from Laura Miller, former mayor of Dallas, Texas. I'm not sure what she was specifically talking about, but it sure fits perfectly after the rat story. It's wasteful spending like this that not only forces tax increases and cuts in vital services, but also really makes you wonder, who is City Hall looking out for? Unquote. Have a great second half of your weekend. As always, thanks for listening. Wisconsin Property Taxpayers Inc. is a nonpartisan membership organization consisting of thousands of small business, farm, and homeowner members in every autumn color loving corner of the state. Founded in 1985, the organization is committed to providing its members with up-to-date information, legislative advocacy, and exclusive cost-saving benefits. Find out how to join at WPTOnline.org/join.